Well, good morning, welcome. I'm Richard Betts, I'm one of the account directors of Britannic. I've been with Britannic for 13 years, so seen a huge amount of change in the industry over that time. It's really important these sessions, it's your time, and thank you for giving up your time to come to this session today. Any questions you've got, please just ask. Try and make it as interactive as we can, and I meet with the Britannic team. We're here to help, and any question, there's no question, it's a silly question. It's probably one that I may be thinking about asking myself. The objective for today, or the agenda for today, we're running a little bit behind, but we'll aim to make that up. So we'll have a.
Sorry.
That's right. Just started. So I'll just start off with outline the scene a little bit, a bit of an introduction about Britannic and who we are, and then hand over to Steve, where we'll start looking into the legacy environment and the journey to modernising your IT infrastructure around the voice. And then we'll look about, I'll come back up and we'll talk about actually how does that happen? How do we support our clients on the transition? And that transition doesn't necessarily have to be to ultimately the cloud, which is maybe an end goal, may not be, but it's how you're aligning your communications infrastructure and services around your internal users and your customers, and ultimately supporting the strategic plan. And it's the services we've got around that, the more softer services, to help complement the fantastic portfolio from Avaya. Then break for coffee, and then back, and then hand over to Mike, where Mike will be looking at how we can enhance customer experience using the technology. So a little bit more around the applications and the business enabling tools that Avaya have got within their portfolio, where you can start dropping into that. And then we'll go and have actually go into the demonstration facility. Anyone been into the demonstration facility before? Okay, so great. So what we'll do is go through that, and we'll actually be able to have a look through some of the different applications and the innovative way that Avaya are embracing some of these applications as well to in real life scenarios to enable organisations to service their customers. Wrapping up with lunch and closing around about 2 o'clock. Fantastic. Okay, so Britannic are an organisation that going for 30 years now. We've got a 20-year relationship with Avaya. We've always positioned ourselves on doing more than just looking after the system. What I mean by that, if we look back to our history, right back to the early days, our founder, Richard Dendel, managing director, who's still at the helm of the business at the moment, very much an engineer by heart, very much keen to use engineering and innovating to take technology and make it do something more. Now, we've done some, in the olden days it would have been a soldering iron and a screwdriver, taking the lid of a phone system off and doing something with it physically to make it do more. And that was a prime example of that was the BBC. We were one of the first independent telco companies into the BBC, where we were providing voice integration services into their broadcasting. So when you got Radio 1 and the DJ in the studio, essentially the problem they had is that on one side they had the phone system, and the other side they had the broadcasting infrastructure. So when there was a phone in and they wanted to speak to Tom on line 1, it was the ability of bridging the gap between the two. And we achieved that at the time, and we achieved very quick growth in that sector through that solutions. Up until recently as well, there was a picture I saw in the newspaper of Chris Moles, and it was a little while ago, but there was in the front corner of the picture was this big old tin telephone system, which was from a long time ago. As technology's changed and things have moved along, we acquired a software house about 14 years ago, and that was placed us in a really interesting position with Avaya. I don't know, those of you aware of the Index platform? Yeah, so as a system that we were working with Avaya, where we were writing and working on the reporting universe on the Index CCM and the contact center portal. So we're in a strange position whereby we were supporting Avaya and supporting our customers, as well as supporting people who were training around that portfolio. And this was a vision of the board, is to say integration, times are changing. Integration now is becoming more software-led at that time, as opposed to physically bolting things together. And the acquisition of Software House has enabled us to really position ourselves as a systems integrator. We're in a position now where we've won awards for essentially overcoming the can't do. And a prime example I can think of was the client that I was working with one of my colleagues on, where we were referred into their organisation, and the biggest challenge they had was getting a call coming in and screen popping the database. But it was on Citrix. And at that time, that was a kind of a fantastic, but really very, very difficult to achieve because it was a thin client environment. And I remember the phone call, the customer saying, the salesperson tells me we can do it. And I'm like, well, the salespeople are very good at saying we can do it, but the difference is, let me show you it. So I took my IP handset, I went on site, opened my laptop, IT did some clever things to enable me to get back to our office in Guildford. And I remember we were running terminal services, and I got him to call my number, and needless to say, the record popped up. We clicked the phone number, and his phone rang from the database. They said, okay, you can do it. And I said, look, let's not leave it there. Let's go to proof of concept on your infrastructure connected to ours, and a bit of work with our developers. We achieved that, and needless to say, we got the deal. But as a result of doing that work, we were in a position that we won industry awards. We also started a global collaboration project with a major software house, where we were providing the middleware application to make linking the phone system with the database. And that's really positioned us really, really strongly now for the world of cloud, because actually the world of cloud is a really integrated environment, and it's touching so many variables across the organization that it's important that you understand that, be it from the WAN, the LAN, the databases, service level agreements that are needed, the value add that people are expecting now from the delivery of cloud, the flexibility there. And if you were just a simple organization who managed and implemented phone systems, you're probably going to struggle in that transition. And we saw this 4 years ago. Gartner were writing about us for the work we did with virtualizing voice and delivering SIP. So we're happy to innovate, and in return that gives us the sort of reassurance for clients that it's a stable main adopter phase by the time organizations want to come and procure cloud, because we've actually been ahead of that curve driving it. Customers we work with, just to name a few, we've got BNP Paribas, which is a big Avaya contact center. Interestingly, we've got some of our suppliers, like Redbox, a supplier. They came to us for their telephone service. So you think about the number of telephone vendors that they're dealing with. They came and chose us. So did Computertel. We've got Endemol, so they make Big Brother. We'll talk a little bit about those, along with many other production companies. Really interesting way we're deploying Avaya in that environment, which we'll talk about in a bit. Learning Tree, anyone heard of Learning Tree? Sort of do IT-based programming, so yeah, they've approached us. So we've just rolled out global voice for those guys. Lots of names, some we recommend, all with the story behind that the team are happy to discuss. Key stats, we're established in '84. We pride ourselves on a quality approach, and recently, a year or so ago, we achieved the ISO 27001, which is a security benchmark, and that's really important to us for the work we're doing with our clouded data services and the way we're deploying services for clients to have that quality and security stamp across the business. Always innovating, 21 product innovations, and finalists for 23 industry awards in 5 years, which we're incredibly proud of, and some of those we've won as well, which is even better. Key stats, so measures, about 750 clients, 97% customer satisfaction, so we serve our client base every 6 months. In addition, Avaya, we're happy for Avaya to survey our Avaya customers as well, so they can get a snapshot on what we're doing. And Avaya come and audit and serve and assess our ability to service our clients as well, which is ranked to the store, which we've got very, very high scores on. 95% remote fix ratio, that's increasing, and that's a stat that we're driving up and up and up, and we're acquiring technologies to support that change, and cloud's enabling us to drive even higher remote fix times, which in turn actually enables us to underpin higher SLAs and back SLAs up with service credits as well. So we're sort of happy to put our money where our mouth is on our SLA performance. Okay, so cloud. It's really interesting. How many of you around the room have deployed cloud in one form or another, or consume cloud? Okay. How many people consume cloud personally? Yeah, so it's quite, it's there. I use Office 365 personally. I think it's really easy because I've got multiple devices for one email. We consume cloud in the business. And what we've seen is, what was the change? And there's a number of catalysts to change that have enabled cloud to become the right time, almost the tipping point of cloud. And if we look at that, the cost of connectivity's come right down. Global recession did a great job in, focusing people. A lot of people changing roles, etc. With that, a lot of insecurity in the job market. People become personally accountable to their performance at work. People now, shifting budgets from a capex to an opex model, so people had to introduce technology to support them in their role, because typically they had fewer headcount, had to achieve more accountable personally on what they were achieving, and going out and acquiring, traditionally implementing an IT service was a huge, great project driven by IT, and this was probably the tipping point where we started seeing business functions around the organisation going out and carrying out their own procurement exercises, and then letting IT know that something was coming downstream. So we're seeing the IT function change. I've got a very good friend of mine who's the IT director at Vidal Sassoon, and L'Oreal. He's a good friend, and he's done a massive change in his IT team, because he's realised his IT team are purely internally focused, but they're actually managing their outsourced providers while managing their technical people. They need to have the technical ability to make sure that the partners are doing what they should do, but they don't actually have the time or the bandwidth to be managing the lights and the infrastructure. They want that taken care of, but they need to make sure that they're addressing the IT project. I've got a legal client of mine, 36 IT projects on the go at the moment, with over 1,000 users. IT teams are really, really busy. And cloud is a quicker way of consuming a service. It's stable and runs and performs. So how did telephony end up in the cloud? So this is an interesting one again, because traditionally the smaller end clients, sub 30 users, lots of cloud providers, very cheap, easy, basic voice services. And what we've seen is, 4 years ago, vendors way before that were aiming up for the cloud, aiming for software, but they've started migrating and making that achievable, and virtualization was a key driver in that. And the vendors, Avaya now can work across on-premise, off-premise, in cloud, and consume in different ways, along with the financial wraparound, which we can look at in more detail. So just want to run through the last few stats here. We did a survey around the cloud, and something's quite interesting. 50% of companies were missing out on opportunities as they didn't have comms in the cloud. Over half the companies we surveyed felt they were missing out. 84% of people understood the cloud proposition. I think an interesting stat after that is how many of those 84 people actually went and did something about it. Would be a great stat, but it is thought-provoking. 80% of people use cloud in their private lives. So again, this is an interesting one. If you're looking to see consumerization of IT is now perhaps starting to shift and gain momentum into the world of corporate IT, whereas before it may not have been so consumer-led. 25,000 users from our side, that's actually the number of users we have deployed on cloud services across the globe on different platforms. So we've got a lot of experience that we can leverage on that, working with our partners at Avaya to help give our clients choice and the right solution to support their growth. How many users are clients here already Avaya customers? So, I'm asking what platform are you using for them? Mitre, okay, fab. And there's from Avaya, IP Office or communication with IP Office? IP Office. What level of software?
I can't say, but
okay, quite a while.
It does need upgrades.
Does need upgrading? Okay.
I don't know if it was slightly before or slightly after the Magna Carta.
Fantastic. Okay, so I think the interesting thing is it's a journey, and what you've got is it's a good building block, and how you would move up from that point. How many of you are looking at going to the cloud? You're seeing cloud. Sort of timeframes you're looking at for that?
I think for us it's got to be led by functionality, because we've seen a number of step changes in what's available, and it's important to say we need to see it working, because we know that it works in places on the land, but the issue is really how it works.
Yeah.
if ever we need Britannic to come and look at an issue, you've got some great engineers, but they tend to suck their teeth and say, I'm not sure we've got one of those even in stores these days.
Yeah.
You know. And although when we expand systems, we are looking to expand it with the same sort of kit, issues about compatibility are always, so for us, the fact that when stuff moves, quote, to the cloud or unquote, and you then end up being agnostic as to the hardware that's doing the interfacing, then of course it means that you're going to have a much wider choice and a much better support, because the telecoms are now using, if you like, agreed standards about how to do things. We feel that we carry on with what we've got because it does the job we want it to do, but we are sort of locked into it by the hardware platforms that we've got. And
Okay.
it does the job, so there's no immediate need for us to change it tomorrow.
Yeah.
But I think when we feel that the thing has stabilised a bit, then that's the time to move onto the platform.
Absolutely.
Does that make any
Yeah,
sense?
it does, absolutely, absolutely. How about yourselves? Any immediate plans, or do you say 3 years, 5 years, not at all?
Possibly later on, yeah.
Yeah? Okay.
Moving to the cloud a bit more,
Okay.
but I'm still a bit old school. I prefer sort of a switch to be on site.
Oh, absolutely. How about yourself?
Yeah, we have premise-based
Yeah.
Mitel 3300s, but
Right.
I have toyed with a hybrid cloud where you've got teleworkers.
Yep.
So I've played with that in the Far East, Middle East, UK, and America, and it does work
Okay.
coming back into the UK.
Which is
Quite well.
quite reassuring, yeah?
Yeah, even though you got like maybe 200 milliseconds from the Far East
Yep.
back into the UK, it's still good.
Fair.
Or even on the plane, when I was on the plane, we had a call, so it is doable.
Okay.
Yes.
So I think the message, and I'm out with clients a lot. I'm working with clients strategically to help plan, the roadmap for the communication platform. And it's a journey. It's a journey we've been on as a business to enable us to have a cloud offering in the first place. We have a cloud offering across all of our platforms. But essentially, the structure we follow with our clients is really a three-stage approach from a sort of an account development plan. One is stabilization. So you've got legacy hardware, you've got issues that are there. We need to stabilize it. We need to shore it up. We need to ensure we can keep that service provided to the business. Because ultimately, if we take, what's the impact, cause and effect? If we take voice away from the business, what impact does that have on the business's ability to service their customers and engage with new clients? Ultimately, driving profit and turnover into the business. Next stage is was the standardization phase, where you're going through and you're having a common set of services, common platform across the entire operation. And the stage after that is the optimization phase, where you're able to look at a very targeted approach, such as contact centers, such as video, CTI, screen popping, all these great applications, dropping those in to address core business issues. How you consume or where you consume your service from, be it on-premise, off-premise, hybrid, cloud, is driven by a whole load of different factors. So I think the reason why I was asking those questions is good to understand, but it's also to look at, share with you our journey, and don't necessarily think this section is only about you guys ending up in the cloud, because it may be that you don't, but some of the services and approaches we adopt may well help you in your current position, even if your short, mid, maybe long-term view is to leave the infrastructure on-premise. Doesn't necessarily mean that this section is kind of irrelevant, and there's probably some good takeaways from your side on that. It may be that you're even thinking about a pre-staging process, so you're pre-staging to go to the cloud. You want to stabilize it, you want to get everything set, applications working right while it's in your domain, while it's in your control. Then when you feel that that system's working to a level that's stable and you're comfortable with it, then it's a case of then I'll hand it over and not step away, but then your relationship changes with that technology. And I think that we can talk about that. So 2010, this is our view, this is our experience of going to the cloud, okay? So things were changing, technologies were changing that were enabling us to consider deploying telephone systems instead of bolted in a rack, actually onto a server, and on that server in a virtual environment. There were a number of enabling technologies such as SIB that was enabling, was supporting, facilitating the move from on-premise to in a data center to being on a virtual machine. And there was lots of other consumption of the cloud. VMware became hugely accessible. Lots of people were deploying the data services in a virtual environment, and then that was going up into the cloud as well. So the data world kind of embraced cloud long before the voice world had. So it's becoming more available. Also culturally, organisations were starting to become accustomed to paying an OPEX-based service for IT-based consumables. So our vision was ultimately to support our clients and then to support them on their journey with their migration, and then to support them on their journey to innovate. And that's to innovate your businesses into your customers, into your markets. So what changes did we do? Well, we went through a whole load of different changes, as you can imagine. We had to look at our engineering resource, we had to look at the type of resource we have within the business, we had to look at partnerships, bringing new skills in, and this ability to innovate and refresh. Over 30 years of business, we're kind of quite used to this approach as technology is moving along. We also had to look at our data centers, how we were connecting our data centers, how we supported our data centers, how we made sure we can provide the service level that customers expect from a managed service provider. Look at how we can bill it. Ultimately, if we've got a service, we've built this fantastic product and service, we've got to be able to bill it. Look at how that interfaces with industry standards. Look at how our SLAs are aligned to this proposition. Look at how our contracts are aligned to our proposition. Look at our project management teams. Look at the delivery mechanism. How do we deliver cloud? How do we support that transition? Because it's all about managing change. It may be changing. I don't have the infrastructure in my rack. I've actually now got it where I can't touch it, I can't see it, I can't walk in and see the lights. I don't get that reassurance it's there. But you know what? I am really accountable in that business. If that service doesn't work, the service provider, I am betting my job potentially on this move that I'm moving to the cloud, and I've got to have the reassurance with that. And we, as a business, had to make sure we transitioned. We've got good retention of clients. We've got clients who've been with us for 25 years. It's a case of saying, how are we going to transition that relationship? So we embarked on a huge period of change, and the net result is, some of you may have already seen this picture, but we came out with the Britannic cloud. And if we can look at it, we essentially have a service layer. So this is a service, this is SIP, this is your CTI, this is your PCI applications. These are a number of different types of services. Some Britannic owned applications, some are other partners within that environment, but these are almost enabling technologies. We then had our infrastructure layer. So this is physically data centers, stuff that we can put things in within the cloud. And it's great having all these fantastic services and products available, but ultimately we need to connect you. We need to put the plumbing in place to connect you to this infrastructure. So let's look at the different points. So the service layer, we've got Avaya platforms within cloud, within our cloud offering. We've got other products such as the Core Logger and voice recording partners within that service layer. So this is where we're putting the applications in that you guys are going to consume. So let's just think very quickly back to Steve's slide. IP office phone system, sitting there, so you take the licenses and migrate them and put them up into the service layer. So it's taking industry standard products. We're not talking about asterisk-based products and software that's developed and freeware loads of software within that environment. We're taking industry standard products that you could consume on premise, and we're putting into our environment within virtual environments so you can consume as a cloud. The infrastructure layer, happy to pull this apart if you want, just very high level. Lots of core underlying foundations. This is the building block. This is when you open up the cupboard to the boiler and you kind of see all this great machine doing lots of different things and water pumps and things making the plumbing work. Ultimately, it's built around industry standard applications and products again, and which we can pull into more detail if required. And then the connectivity layer. Well, as you'd expect with a 30-year relationship within the communications market, we've got a lot of providers available to us. And again, it's a real can-do approach. I remember I've got one of the production companies of mine, who didn't use us for WAN services called me and said, Rich, we're stuck. I've got a production going live in 3 days' time and I have got nothing into that site there in London. So what we're able to do is go into our partner chain, speak to the guys at WireMax, and we were able to provision a service into there that enabled that production. This is on TV, on the live TV, on the weekend, to go ahead. We've got a whole variety of different types of platforms. That's great, because what it means is we can ultimately connect to you. Now, we can provide you with your own WAN and services, which we'd love to do, but also fully accept and understand that people already have their own WAN services in place and don't necessarily want to be doing too much change in one go. So we've got connectivity using interconnects where we can take our cloud infrastructure and essentially hook it into your WAN infrastructure, so you've still got that delivery mechanism. Yes, we've got to do lots of due diligence, make sure it can support it and etc. And we're not going to hit issues, but we've done this for a number of different customers. So it's all about choice with how you connect. And it's not necessarily connecting into your infrastructure, but it's also connecting your users into the infrastructure. Because one of the drivers of going to the cloud is that good old Martini slogan, any place, anywhere, anytime. Yeah? And it's business continuity. That's what it gives the business. It gives a reassurance. If my site, I was unable to get people to that site, I'm still able to service the customer. I'm able to service that customer because I'm empowering my users to communicate from wherever they want. One of the big enablers, if we're to take your infrastructure, or you're to take your infrastructure into a data center that's off-premise, is what do you do with the phone numbers and phone lines? SIP is what we call one of our enabling. We've got two principal enabling technologies. The first one being SIP, and this enables us to take your service, your numbers, we can port them over to the Britannic NetX portal, and from here we can then route those calls into our cloud or onto your on-premise. It doesn't have to be in the cloud, it can be on-premise, so you're able to then essentially start looking at how you're deploying your numbers. You can have geographic reach of those numbers as well. You've got a huge amount of choice. We've been doing SIP since 2002, have a huge amount of experience in it. We've built our platform that gives us a huge amount of control on the numbers, so we're doing any active, passive, lots of different services around that, which we can happily talk about. It's a tried and tested solid platform routing many millions of minutes, okay? If you come to Britannic, into our network operations center, you can actually see the services running and you can see how that's set up and how we monitor it. The second enabling technology is NetConnect. This is a middleware application that sits between the world of telephone systems and the world of databases and applications. So an example here is if you've got Link, for argument's sake, and you may have different types of phone systems. What you want to do is you want to migrate and move to an Avaya core telephone platform, but you still may want to keep some form of Link functionality. You've got a choice. You can either use the plugins that come with Avaya, or you may say, actually, we've got a wider CTI proposition here. What I want by that CTI, that's the ability of screen popping and clicking and dialing. I may want to enable my CRM software. I may want to enable my help desk ticketing software to do click to dial, to have information popping. NetConnect is a middleware application, very thin middleware application that sits between a telephone system and the database world. Fantastically powerful tool if you're thinking about joining up with presence applications, and really good glue that sits between the two worlds. Can be deployed on-premise, in the cloud, in your cloud, lots of choice where it goes as well. So don't necessarily think of it purely as a cloud operation. Okay, so it's great. We've got this infrastructure. It's all working perfectly well. We're looking at it. We will give you real-time health checks. So we'll give you a window in on your portal, on your applications. You can see using NetReport exactly what's going on. This is a health check. It's a finger on the pulse. If you start getting issues, SMS alerts are sent out. We get red alerts come out, and different types of warnings and reporting. We use this ourselves to manage our applications, so if you're one of our SIP clients, we'll be managing the infrastructure on that to ensure it's available. But what we'll do is we'll give you a window, your window on your services within that environment, so you can see. So there's no hiding behind the service provider view, or we'll let you know when there's an outage, or we'll give you a report at the end of the month of what's going on. You'll know if there's going to be a warning on that. What that gives us is a heads up, so we'll know if there's maybe, because we'll be measuring certain thresholds, CPU levels, all sorts of different very fundamental stats that are going on your platform. We will know before something's happening, so we can at least start. We get that heads up. Cloud can be deployed in many different places. If I ask you to write down your definition of cloud, I'm sure there'll be some similarities, but there'll also be some discrepancies about where it sits. What I would say is, my view of the cloud, there's public cloud, so that's like a bus. You get on the bus, it's going from A to B. It's going to take you places you may not want to go, but you're going to end up at your destination, and it can be a perfectly civilized, enjoyable experience to go on the bus. It can also be pretty crammed, pretty unpleasant, and actually maybe quite erratic at times. Yeah? But you pay your money, you take your experience. Alternatively, private cloud could be like a chauffeur-driven car. The car's there waiting for you, it's a far better experience, and you go to the destination you want to go to on the route you want to take, within reason. There's a difference in cost. Of course there's a difference in cost, but there's a difference on experience and a difference on the type of service level you can put around that. Ultimately, it's a journey into migration. It may start off on premise and then gradually move up as you go through your IT strategy to move to the cloud, and it starts the journey. The other key driver for cloud is commercial, and we touched on it earlier. During recession, CapEx budgets were limited, so everything moved to sort of a revenue-based model. So we've got different ways that we can support our clients with migrating into the cloud. And it may be simply taking an existing infrastructure and putting it up into the cloud environment. It may be that what we're looking at doing is moving to a new infrastructure where it's CapEx driven, but it's still hosted. It may be that it's leased, so you still want to own the asset at the end of it. Or it may be that I just want to consume it on a consumption subscription-based model. And that can also work with ebbs and flows as well. So if you're on seasonal demand with users within the contact center, we can look at that billing around that as well. So we've got a huge amount of choice. Huge choice on how you deploy it and consume it, and huge choice on how you pay for it. Okay, so that's all fantastic, but it's ultimately about managing change. It's about managing the way that your business communicates with your customers, and doing it in a way that when we embark on this transition, doesn't matter how long that transition process is, it's doing it in a way that risk is contained and managed, and huge value is delivered back to the users. Now we've put together a process that we follow and work with our clients on it. So essentially we'll do a discovery stage at the start, and we'll pull apart and look exactly what's going on, looking at how you're using the system, meet with different user groups, and try and collate as much information. And you know what? This isn't necessarily for users with thousands of users. Yeah, this model can still roll down to organisations that are far smaller. In fact, the degree of nimbleness at the SMB level is incredibly important to those businesses. So in fact, the attention to detail is very, very key at that level as well. So this model and process works. It just may scale and adjust differently around the different type of organisation you are. What we do as well is we look at the supply chain, because this is a great opportunity to consolidate supply chain. You may have different partners looking after different things, and that's great. Some partners you may wish to keep, and that's not a problem. We can work with them. But there may be other partners you think, well, actually, why have I got 3 people providing me with inbound telephone services or phone line providers? Why don't I consolidate to one vendor? Why don't I realize, remove that overhead of managing multiple partners? Why don't I look at consolidating down? What we're looking for, guys, we're looking for finding ways of cost saving. If we can bring some cost saving in as part of the stabilisation, that gives us a bit of a head fund at the start, where we can then start looking at trying to create the panacea of a self-funding project, i.e. take savings at the front end and leverage those savings to support the transition as we're moving through the journey. What we'll do is we'll define the end goal. What's the end goal look like, and how long is it going to take to us to get there? Maybe 5 years that you see yourself in the cloud, that's not a problem. And maybe you don't ever see yourselves in the cloud. Again, no issues, but what's your end game and where do you see that? In addition, not only from an ICT side, but what's the business's plan in 3 years' time? What's the growth? How are they going to do the growth? What's the pressures on the IT team to support that business plan? Factor that in. So essentially we do a gap analysis. This is where we are, this is where we want to get to, and we'll map out that journey with you. We'll run workshops, we'll run pilots, we'll look at user acceptance testing. It's all about containing the risk. If you're not happy or comfortable with moving to that cloud, we need to understand the reasons why, and we need to work with you to help them overcome those, to ensure your users can move at the pace you guys need to for the business. There's no point going live on something if the users aren't happy with it. We need to make sure the users are happy. We'll structure user acceptance testing routines and policies. One of my clients, the solicitors, we actually built the system out for them in the cloud on our demo platform, and we gave them, I think, about 4 laptops demonstrating different applications, different phones, and we let them take it around their 8 offices on a roadshow. We weren't part of it. Their IT team did that. If we need to do that to bring the users on as part of this change, and again, it's not a technology change, it's a business change. Once the project's up and going, we'll work with our Prince2 project managers, and essentially they'll work through a cycle of project initiation where there's lots of documentation and managing the risk and change control and project plans and Gantt charts and lots of things to help support that, which they're fantastic at doing to control the project. And then we move into the execution stage. So the project manager will own that, and we'll have different skill sets within our business. We may have our carrier services team, our engineers, we're training people involved. We may have people from our data networking side, our software development teams, all involved, but the project manager will be putting all of those relevant skills together on the plan to work on it. And we're seeing more and more phased deployments, so more protracted projects, but more phased projects. So what we'd look at there is we'll have a live project, but we may have also a live system with changes going on. So once you're handed over onto the platform, we're then introducing change control measures to ensure that you're able to have confidence the platform's still working while other changes are going on with it. And just all the way, so hand-holding all the way through into our service team, involved in billing as well, to make sure that the guys in billing are aligned to your accounts team. And this is really important. Don't underestimate the power of aligning your accounts team with our accounts team. Learning Tree saves them 1 day a month by aligning our billing platforms on their accounts team from processing the bills. So we've automatically freed up 1 day a month of a person's time processing phone bills. Fantastic. Not a huge saving, but you know what? That's helped that team do more and focus their accounts team where they need to. Okay, Britannic customers, anyone use the Britannic TV website? No, there was one there. So there's one there, lots of interesting things on it, little handset shots, how do I do different things, seminars there, videos from our partners on there, lots of different things, great wealth of information. We can put things on there to support users, we can give you access to videos on there to put on your intranet. But you know what, this is really, really useful. How do I access my voicemail? How do I set a call forward on it? How do I do different features on the phone system? They're there. If they're not, ask your account manager, ask us, and we can look at getting there. Work with our partners to get their videos on there too. So great resource in training and ongoing. What we're absolutely seeing at the moment is that it's the journey to the cloud and the account management is an ongoing hand-holding process. Organisations are changing all the time, and it's really, really important from our view that we're aligned to our customers to help advise and guide on when those changes are happening, because IT teams are really, really stretched, really, really busy at the moment, and we're experts in what we do. We've got 30 years of experience, and over, I think it's about 60% of our staff have been with the organisation for 5 years or longer. That is a huge wealth of information and knowledge that's there at your disposal. And what we'll do is we'll work with our account managers aren't assigned as new business teams, and then you get handed over to an account manager team. Our account managers look after both new business and existing customers. So what's agreed at the start is there, and that knowledge and that confidence and the trust and the relationship is there as the relationship changes and it transitions from the scoping to a bid process to an order to fulfillment to then support. The account manager is there throughout the whole journey to support you with that continuity. Okay. Lots going on with service. I think big change going around for our managed service customers is now we're giving full visibility and reporting on the applications within your data center, within our data center, the clients are consuming in the cloud. And we'll break that down to individual granular applications as well, linked into SLA. So it's very, very visible, very, very granular. but gives the confidence that we're of the levels, service levels you're getting from the platform. Okay, gotchas. Migrating to the cloud, one of the biggest gotchas people forget about analog lines and analog services. It's even the same if you're moving to a virtual environment. Number porting. If you're taking your numbers from an ISDN service up on SIP, anyone on SIP at the moment? Okay. So part of that journey, we need to make sure we're managing the porting process. We sit on regulatory body Ofcom. We sit on some of their forum groups to help extend our experience we have with porting. And we've done a number of firsts in their scenario 4 ports, which are from our carrier service team is the awful place to be when you're trying to port a number. We're trying to get those numbers out, and we've been able to achieve that with our relationship with BT. We've been able to help facilitate the can't do impossibles with some number ports. A lot of experience there to support it. We've got a very, very clear, defined process and tried and tested that helps through that. But out of hours, we need to consider it. Do you need an out of hours number port or not? And we can work with clients on that. Make sure you've got suitable quads, quality of service and bandwidth across your connection. I know it's obvious, but it's all too easy to just get a picture and draw it and go, well, we'll just connect to your data network and it'll all be great. And actually, will it be great? Let's think about it. Let's look at the demand and how it works. The SLAs are absolutely critical. What some people do is just go, great, okay, I'll take those 5 nines SLA, or I'll take a service uptime on that. Is that service uptime what's needed in your organisation? Do you need to be paying more for a higher SLA when actually, if you've got the availability of service built within a data centre, then actually, you know what? Maybe you don't need such a higher SLA. So some people get suckered into taking higher SLAs, and when perhaps they don't need to. The bottom line is one gotcha people, they capture it and they go, business continuity, fantastic, the cloud will give me that. How often do you align your comm strategy with your business continuity plan or the board's business continuity plan? And then on top of that, how often do you then go and test that? Because if we're going to communicate that the cloud's going to give you lots of business continuity, we need to make sure that it does, and I think that's a key stage. We're also factoring within our implementation process, but it's a key gotcha that people forget, and then the expectation, if something does go wrong and it has been factored in, we've had clients come to us where they're looking to review whole cloud propositions from other vendors back into ourselves because things weren't quite as clear as they thought they would do around the business continuity. So we'll work with you. We've even got consultants we can bring in to support you with business continuity testing. So just to wrap up, I think you'll agree that there's a pretty diverse portfolio, very powerful. I think we've got IP officers already. There's a fantastic promotion running at the moment, because it's the DNA of Avaya, but there's the ASIP offering is incredibly powerful. Well worth a look at it. The Avaya portfolio is, I'm seeing a huge amount of interest at the moment in the IP office. Portfolio fits incredibly well. The mobility piece is a force to be reckoned with within the industry at the moment. Bearing in mind we sit across a number of different vendors, and the contact center is truly multimedia, with the ability to embrace into social media as well. So that's certainly something, again, we're seeing an awful lot of interest in around the social media piece within tenders, and organisations starting to consider it. The video is, we use it ourselves in-house, and we've got obviously a choice and of partners we can work with on that. We use Scope here ourselves, and where we take that is in bid presentations. Sometimes it's really important, the project manager has a key involvement in that because they're managing the change, but actually to take a project manager out to sit in a meeting for 4 hours on the bid process may not be the best use of their time, so you can bring these guys in on videos. And the desk-based sales team also use Scopia to manage their client relationships as well. So these are a desk-based team managing clients throughout the UK, and they're able to do that on video. And that's real-life examples. Well, I'll just touch on a couple of slides just before we head next door. NMR, a production company. We look after their Avaya infrastructure and put the Avaya infrastructure in. Really interesting, these guys, they've got any one time over 1,000 users probably got a permanent work staff of around about 400 permanent workers. And they work a lot of contractors. So production is going to start, so you have the Endemol permanent staff, they'll be seconded to that project. Endemol will then go out and they'll bring in subcontractors. The IT team has to provide voice provision for these organisations. The production will then move from within their building to the production site. The production site could be anywhere from a fixed installation through to out in the middle of nowhere, traditionally very, very poor bandwidth to support that requirement. And at the end of the time, between 6 weeks to 6 months, that production is then closed down. Permanent staff come back in and reassigned, and the temporary, the contract users are then released to other productions or stop working at Endemol once until a new production comes up. What we've done with the Avaya platform is enable us to create a template of different types of user models, be it purely mobile only, through to fully resilient site. We've supported things like the National Lottery Live game show, primetime TV, through the infrastructure. So you've had to put incredibly real-time, high availability solution in a production site for a matter of one show over a weekend and take that down. So it's very quick to deploy. The Avaya platforms enable us to do that with these guys. Sunspot Tours, they had very old restricted phone system. We did work with them, working with Avaya, and we identified a new contact center platform for that. The biggest enabler for those guys is they had a fantastic contact center platform with the Avaya's solution and SIP from Britannic, but they want to extend it out to home workers. They want to take the contact center and have it on the home worker side, and the platform enabled us to do that, which essentially kept the staff that they traditionally couldn't involve into the contact centre and brought them into the fold to help support their customers. Michelmores came to us for support for their platform, and they came to us for support because of the technical expertise, but also the ability, our experience within cloud. So what we're going through there is a change program at the moment where we're looking at stabilising the voice infrastructure on-premise for once we've got that stage sorted, then in a few years' time, then move that infrastructure up into the cloud. So it's the sort of stories we've touched on here. While that's going, the organisation has very aggressive growth plans as well that we're having to factor into the strategy. Caxton, so deal within the financial sector, where we're working with these guys again under an unreliable, unstable phone system. Plus the ability of extending voice into a managed service office environment, plus the high availability service that they happen to be available all the time. I remember the first meeting I was in there with one of my colleagues, and the fire alarm went off. So everyone's kind of descending out of the building in London, down multiple stairs in a high-rise building, out onto the pavement. They've got a leash running on the building for a little bit longer. So what we're looking at doing there is we're taking the ability of saying, well, actually, this happens quite a lot. It's quite a regular pain. So what we're doing is the ability of actually being able to extend voice services out to a mobile device that the traders can still carry on servicing their clients when they're outside the building waiting on a fire alarm when that's going on. It actually costs them enough with issues going on. So it's taking applications and evolving it and moulding it around the client's needs. So just in summary, the Avaya portfolio is incredibly established, proven technology going back many years. I remember when the IP office was born out of the IP platform. That platform now, different bits of it can move along the journey, but the core underlying fundamentals of the IP office are a tried, well-established platform that's now scaling up to 2,500 users, with a very joined up portfolio of video, data networking, multimedia, contact center, and stable unified communications platform. How that's deployed and how that's consumed is entirely up to you, but with Britannic, you've got choice on where you do that and how you do that. The biggest benefits I'm happy to share with you, and again we can pull this into more detail. The primary benefits you're going to see by embarking on the standardization, optimization journey through to the cloud, you're going to be looking at cost savings. There is no doubt there is money to be saved. I have struggled not to find cost savings for clients who embark on this journey from a traditional platform. It's going to enable you to be agile. How powerful would it be for your organisation if you could extend some of these services out to your users? What would that mean to your sales team? What would it mean to your client-facing team? What would it mean to business continuity if that organisation could still keep working? It's got to be easy and it's got to be quick. And speed of deployment is very, very, very important. We had a client who's a 1,000-seat contact center. They're in a position that when we were rolling out new contact centers, this contact center could be 4 users, right? We were putting about 4 servers on site, more servers than people. We're in a position now that we can essentially, once the router's live for the WAN connection to the building, guys are turning up, putting the phone and handsets on the desk, and essentially having some user training, and they're good to go live. I've got one of my clients who even deploys their own handsets now on the cloud platform. So we'll have a couple of hours engineering time, programming out the users, and we've got whole new business units going live where the staff are actually deploying that themselves. That's going to free up time. It's going to free up IT department's time to then focus and work internally to help look at what the organisation needs on how they consume technology to ensure it's not holding the business back. That's incredibly powerful. Very hard to measure, but incredibly powerful. What could we do if we could yield some of that 80% of the time that Mike touched on to recycle that back into the business? The Avaya Britannic partnership goes back 20 years. We've got some long-standing customers, and we've known in the industry to save pair of hands. And happy to talk about that further over the break. We're going to get away with the fantastic technology we can see now. Thank you all for your time. Please do fill out your client questionnaires, the customer survey questionnaires, because Sheridan will beat me if we don't get those back. Any questions, please feel free to ask. Thanks, Mike.
Thanks, Rich.